Hello, bonjour, and welcome to the Cannes Special podcast on jasonsolomons.com. I'm Jason Solomons, so we're in the right place then. Coming to you after 12 days of films, sunshine, rosé and parties here on the Croisette, this show should give you a flavour of the 69th Cannes Film Festival, at least the way I saw it. We got so much stuff from Cannes this year that we're splitting the podcast into two parts. On the first show, I talked to Woody Allen about his latest film to open Cannes, Café Society. And in the second part, I meet the man who gave one of Cannes' best performances, playing Chile's most famous and complex poetic icon, Pablo Neruda. It's the actor Luis Gnecco. And also tearing up the big screen from South America in the second part of the show, I meet Brazilian bombshell Sonia Braga to talk about her towering performance in Aquarius. All the way through, I'll be giving you a roundup and rundown of my favourite films from Cannes. I might even dare, finally, to predict who might carry off the Palme d'Or this coming Sunday night. Pour yourself a glass of rosé and prepare for the Cannes podcast double on jasonsolomons.com. As most of you will know, I've spent the last year in a Woody Allen world, following up the publication of my book, Woody Allen, Film by Film, with talks, screenings, signings and seasons. It began with an interview with Woody at last year's Cannes, so it was a real thrill to be granted another audience with him a year later, during which time he's, of course, made another movie. Café Society kicked off the festival, a delightful mix of all of Allen's favourite things: old Hollywood, Jewish Brooklyn, New York nightclubs, affairs of the heart, tortures of the soul, all set to the great 1930s music of Rodgers and Hart.
I'm expecting a call from Ginger Rogers. She's not happy with her representation, so who knows?
Phil, it's Rose.
Rose?
Your sister. My son. He's coming to Hollywood. The man eats with Fred Astaire and Gary Cooper.
I'm impressed.
Jesse Eisenberg stars as a young man, Bobby, who goes out to LA to seek his fortune, but quickly becomes disillusioned with life in Hollywood, falling in unrequited love with Kristen Stewart's studio secretary. When I was granted an audience with the great man, I began by asking Woody, if he had such a dim view of Hollywood, how come he fell in love with it in the first place?
I was attracted to the product, the end product. I grew up on movies, living on movies and seeing them. So I was that part I was attracted to. I didn't know anything growing up about the inner workings of what was really going on there. All I saw was, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and they looked great to me.
Remarkable then how not lucky you got, but how you managed to do it your way all this time. 47 pictures. I count 50. I know you say 47, but yeah, it's amazing that you managed to do it your way.
Yeah, it is amazing. It was largely luck, a little bit of deception and scheming and lying and tap dancing and but it was largely luck. I was right from the start. When I started, I worked with a company called Palomar, and it was their first picture. So they were happy to get me. They gave me $1 million to do the film. That was the budget of the film, to do the film. And they couldn't attract the big directors. They couldn't get John Huston to make a picture for them. So they got me. The same thing was United Artists. I started working with them on my second picture. And they were a very enlightened company. Their feeling was to let the artists work, and so they were very nice.
I feel there was an irony. That first one for Palomar was take the money and run, of course, which is what you did. You took the money and ran and make a picture.
It was a very nice experience. And also there was a misconception that I traded on, that the studios felt that the comic people who made comedies had some kind of secret knowledge that the studios didn't mess with. If you wrote dramatic films and made dramatic films, they felt they could give you changes and they knew better than you. If you made comedies, if it was me or Mel Brooks or something, they said, "Oh, these guys are, geniuses. They know what they're doing," and they didn't interfere. They didn't feel qualified to interfere.
The thing I wonder is that, it was such a dream for you to kind of be part of this when you were growing up, and looking at these pictures. And this film that now is about those dreams in a way, and it's about souring dreams, which are romantic as much as professional. Do you feel that your dreams all came true?
All my dreams in life, or I would say 90% of them came true. You know, I wanted to be in movies, and I was. I wanted to be a comedian. I've dined at the White House. I've played jazz all over New Orleans, and that's something I wanted to do when I was younger. I've directed. I've worked in all the media, you know, from radio through nightclubs, right through films. I've done a lot of things.
I wrote a book about you last year. I was telling you, and I sent you the book. In fact, here it is. In fact, there is the book, which I think you have, and you received it.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
Thank you, and you're in it, so that's good.
Yes, this was a very pretty book. I saw this.
Thank you. Yes, you said. I think you said there was too much praise for you on the back cover, but I didn't write that bit. Okay. My publisher writes that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's too much praise. You always feel embarrassed.
I know. I feel terrible showing it to you. But one of this, as you know, when you write the book, you have to do promotional tours, and you go around and you talk to people, and you see the various audiences who are still attracted not to just your movies, but to some other kid that comes along to talk about your movies and you. And the one of the questions I got back, which I hadn't thought in my head, was he's always writing films about young people and their hopes and their dreams as the romantic lead, and now you have Jesse Eisenberg, who's wonderful, better than you could be, I think, ever.
Yes, by far.
But people said to me, why doesn't he make a film about old people? Now he's 80 and he's, with respect and old.
Don't old people smell?
But it's not smell-o-vision. We you're not William Castle.
You make movies. You don't set out to make movies about something specifically. You have ideas, and whatever those ideas are, you do. If I got a brilliant idea tomorrow about old people, then I would do it.
Let me phrase it perhaps differently then. Given that you are 80, congratulations on that. The ideas you have don't correspond to perhaps the preoccupations of your everyday thoughts in that case. Now that you are 80 and you have a family and you have children and a wife, do you not start, and clearly you think about death kind of every day?
I've thought about death from when I'm 5 years old. So I've thought about it my whole life. So it's nothing new to me. But
to think about it as a 5-year-old is surely different to thinking about it as an 80-year-old. I mean, it's a lot nearer for one thing.
Well, nearer if you're lucky enough to have a full life. But there are many 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds that I've outlived now by 70 years. It can happen any manner. I hate to tell you this, but it can happen at any age, at any moment.
Oh, no.
So sure, as you get older, it becomes more imminent and more inevitable. Not more inevitable, but more imminent. But there's nothing you can do about that. All you can do is keep on working. And one morning, my wife will shake me and say, "Get up! It's 8:00." But I won't get up, and she'll say, "Oh God!" And then she'll call the exterminator.
The other thing that I also find out going around the country with your book is that I don't want to. That this may come as a shock to you, but the Jews love you. They almost like they're proprietorial about you in a way. They feel a very special bond. And sometimes I asked you this before, but An Irrational Man was not a Jewish picture at all. But this one is. There's a lot of Yiddish in this picture of your childhood. Clearly,
it's only Jewish in that there are Jewish parents in the movie. But the movie itself, the plot of the movie, all the action of the movie, everything that happens, has nothing to do with Jews. It has to do with the ambition of the kid, going out to Hollywood, getting involved with women, running a nightclub, all of these things. But I make them Jews because I'm familiar with the scene, the idiom and the rhythms, because I grew up in a Jewish household. But the truth of the matter is, there's really very little in the movie except for the parents. A kid comes from a Jewish home. that
You have the double whammy of a Jewish hooker in this, which is obviously kind of a joke that you've been playing with for a long time. She's a hooker and she turns out to be Jewish, and he can't sleep with a Jewish hooker. It's like sleeping with his sister or his mother, I suppose.
Well, an easy laugh. I'm combining two hot button laugh things. Hooker, people laugh because they're so inhibited that sexual references still get big laughs, even in this day of sexual freedom. And Jewish, that's just the way. There are certain subjects that just automatically people laugh at.
Well, a pleasure to see you again. Thank you so much.
You. See you
nice
next
to
year.
see you. Yeah. Same time next year. And Cafe Society will be released in the US in July, in the UK in September. It's already out in France if you're headed that way. Catch it early. And my book is still available everywhere, even in Fnac in Cannes, I was pleased to notice. Seems like a very good time for a quick look at a couple of my favourite films from the front part of the selection this year. I'm going to kick off with Sierra Nevada, a Romanian film with nevertheless a strangely Spanish title. This was fabulous stuff, typical Cannes fare, I would say, but at the top end of the spectrum. It was about a dinner party being held by a mum as a memorial for her deceased husband, and the family were gathering to mark the passing of their pater familias. They have a meal that seems to consist of fish borscht and cabbage rolls, one of the least appetising meals in movie history, I think. But they never get to eat it anyway. They keep coming and going and arguing, and they wait for a priest to come and give blessings. It's very funny. It's very dark, and I suppose all life from Bucharest is captured in this flat. The camera sort of sticks in the middle of the apartment and wanders backwards and forwards as people come and go in and out of rooms, talking about history and conspiracy theories and communism and how it was good. All levels there, including the kind of the nouveau riche aspect of it. I loved it. It was a real family gathering movie, and I think a strong contender, to be honest with you. Until I saw, of course, American Honey, which was directed by Andrea Arnold, her third time in competition here at Cannes. This marks a departure for her because after Red Road and Fish Tank and Wuthering Heights, this sees her on American soil in the South, I suppose, Texas, Kansas area, where a young girl called Star runs away from home to get a job selling magazines door to door with a group of roughneck rednecks led by Shia LaBeouf and Riley Keough's kind of capitalist entrepreneur Crystal. Star sort of comes of age as we follow her around in kind of this van as they play hip-hop music and kind of go into various homes, rich and poor. It's a sort of snapshot portrait of the divisions of American society and of the inner growth of this woman, played by Sasha Lane, a girl becoming a woman. Beautiful close-ups on her all the way through by cinematographer Robbie Ryan. And it's really about her emotional coming of age during this sort of picaresque journey across the South. I thought it was really, really well done, beautifully performed, great music. It looked fantastic. I think it's a sort of film that was cool, really. We don't get a lot of cool movies in Cannes in competition, and this certainly had that. And I look forward to its journey continuing a lot further throughout the rest of the year.
I got a job. It's in Kansas. Did you come all the way here to tell me that?
I suppose Andrea Arnold as director would really acknowledge the hereditary nature of what she's got from Ken Loach, who was in Cannes for the 14th time at the age of 80 with I, Daniel Blake, which I have to say was the film that cut through to my heart and had me kind of in tears at the end of it. It's a social realist masterpiece. I think to be held up on a par with films like that he's done before, like Cares and certainly My Name is Joe. There's something visceral about Ken when he collaborates with his screenwriter Paul Laverty as here, and they just get to the point. They don't muck it up with sort of flashy shots and too much melodrama and too much kind of finesse in the screenplay. They've got something to say, and in this case it was one of the scariest messages and most correct messages about how the welfare state is crumbling and being dismantled by the very people who are in charge in order to disenfranchise the very people it's supposed to be saving. It's of a piece, I suppose, with Ken's brilliant documentary Spirit of 45, which chronicled how the welfare state and privatisation, the war between those after the Second World War and the Attlee government, how nationalisation came in, and they had the NHS and the national education and the railways and the mines, and that was dismantled, as Ken would always say, by Thatcher. But that's a legacy that's being continued now by capitalism itself, free market economy, Reaganomics, I suppose. And it really kind of came to home in Daniel Blake, the story of a 59-year-old joiner, carpenter from Newcastle, who just can't navigate the new system of welfare and benefits because it's all gone online and he hasn't got a computer. And also, it's designed not to work. I thought it was a great performance from Dave Johns, a complete unknown, as well as Hayley Squires, who was just great as a single mum who's been moved out of London, almost socially cleansed out of London, who strikes up a friendship with this guy as he helps her with her kids, fend off the chill of the Newcastle poor.
I was on the bus, it's gone the wrong way. We've run, got off the bus, run, so there wasn't any more late. She just didn't want to know. She doesn't want to know. And now she's telling me she's going to refer me for a sanction.
What I want you to do is listen to me, OK? The lady's told you what's right. There's rules here, rules that we have to stick to, OK? It isn't against you, but you have a duty.
Listen, I'm not saying it's against
you
me.
have
All
a
I'm saying
duty to be here on time.
And I'm explaining to you why I wasn't here on time.
Do you know
but
what?
I got lost.
I understand, right? But what I gather now is the decision maker. The decision maker's going to be sending you a letter through the post. You're going to have to wait for that, and then you're going to...
My kids have got to start school tomorrow. I've got about 12 quid in my purse.
Do you know what?
All because you can't just calm down and listen to people when they talk.
Right,
You all
again,
have to do this.
Do you know what? I've listened to you.
Rules.
You've created a scene. I think
I've created this... No, mate, I've created... If I was going to create a scene, you'd know about it.
You need to
trust
leave
me.
the building.
I'm sorry, look.
Okay, you need to... This is ridiculous.
Jesus
what am I
Christ!
supposed to do?
Who's first in this queue?
I am.
Do you mind if this young lass signs on first?
No, you carry on.
There you go. Now you can go back to your desk and let her sign on and do the job that the taxpayer pays you for. This is a bloody disgrace.
Listen, all right? This doesn't have to involve you. Everybody's trying to do their job here, and you're creating more of a scene again.
We see a food bank. I mean, who else but Ken Loach is going to put a food bank on screen? When an excruciatingly brilliant scene in there. I would love this to be the Palme d'Or winner. It sort of needs it to be. But, you know, there's nothing to match that power of 80-year-old Ken Loach on firebrand form.
What kind of a monster are you?
Bone cruncher, child chewer, meat dripper, gizzard gulper, butcher boy.
Please don't eat me.
I suppose something completely different, which is what Cannes can throw at you, is from I, Daniel Blake to the BFG. We had to first look at Steven Spielberg's new animation, an adaptation, of course, of Roald Dahl's 1982 novel. That was a little bit late for me. I'd given up reading Roald Dahl by 1982, so I wasn't aware of BFG particularly. It's now time to read it to my kids, of course, and I will be doing that, having seen the film, which was absolutely, as ever with effects movies these days, every time you see them, they take it to the next level, and this was next level motion capture performance from Mark Rylance. It's always been Gollum and Andy Serkis was the best motion capture performance, and then maybe he did it again as Caesar the Ape in Planet of the Apes. But now Mark Rylance has taken that sort of legendary Rylance stillness and distilled it into the BFG himself. I mean, it's just extraordinary to know where the performance begins and the mocap ends. Just beautiful. Working really well with a young British actress called Ruby Barnhill, whose first film this was. And there's so much wonder here. You know, this is written by the late Melissa Matheson, who, with Spielberg, wrote E.T., of course, which is about, a little boy and a little girl, I suppose, in awe of this alien creature. And I suppose that's exactly that stuff we've got here in BFG. A little bit too much of it, if you ask me. A little bit too much gawping and eyes opening in wonderment. I thought it was a bit too much. The film comes in at just under 2 hours, which I'm no film expert in terms of the marketing, but that's too long for kids. 2 hours, I don't think they want to sit there for 2 hours, no matter how charming it is, and no matter how many fart jokes you give the Queen and her corgis. Nevertheless, it was beautiful, and Rylance's performance a thing of wonder. So those reviews bring us to the end of the first part of the Cannes Special podcast on jasonsolomons.com. Tune into the next part for Luis Gnecco, who plays Neruda in the film Neruda, and Brazilian bombshell Sonia Braga from Aquarius. Plus, more reviews and predictions in the second half of the Cannes Special podcast on jasonsolomons.com. See you in a bit.